Those who live in SFA pay around 71% of the market rate for a house. But what is the process of moving into service families accommodation, and are you even eligible? Hey everyone, and welcome to The Savvy Squaddy. In this video, I will take you through from start to finish the steps you need to take to move into service families accommodation. I moved into my first SFA in March 2020, and in October 2024, I moved into my third one. So I'm fairly experienced with the whole process by now. But even I have learned a bunch of stuff whilst doing my research for this video. So if you are a seasoned SFAer, I'm sure you will gain some value from this. I will cover as much as I can to guide you through that process, but please let me know down below your own tips or tricks, or if I have left anything out. This will be a long video with a lot of information. There will be chapters in the description below should you wish to skip to certain points. As with many of my videos, this will be a general guide and I will be focusing on moves within the UK. There is a ton of nuance that comes with moving in and out of SFA, which I can't cover here. JSP 464 is available on the Gov website and is the go-to for all things accommodation. I will link it below. By all means, leave your questions in the comments and I will try to answer as many as I can. Right, let's get into it. Firstly, by starting off with covering who is eligible for service families accommodation. Well, you must be over 18, finished phase 1 training, be a regular or full-time reservist on full commitment, have a P-stat category of 1, 1C, 1S or 2, which in simple terms this means you are either married in a civil partnership or have permanent custody of a child, and you also have at least 6 months left to serve. This is a general guide for entitlement. Of course, there are caveats and exceptions, but I'm not going into them here. There are over 10 pages in the JSP with them all on. If you have a more nuanced situation in which you might think you could be entitled, for example a single pregnant servicewoman, or your kids are no longer dependent on you, or you are a part of a service couple, etc., then check out JSP 464 for more information. At the recording of this video, the Modernised Accommodation Offer is still in review, which means those in established long-term relationships are still only entitled to surplus SFA. You guys still apply the same way as everyone else, but at the moment, if there are no surplus houses, you will not receive one. The review also means that needs-based allocation is still on hold, so officers still receive houses based on rank, and other ranks receive houses based on family size. On screen now is a table which shows the current types and entitlements of SFA depending on a bunch of different factors. Pause the video to have a proper look. Because I have 2 kids, I am entitled to and currently occupying a Type C property. You can live one above or one below your entitlement if they are available, and naturally you will pay the rate for the type you occupy and not your entitlement type. We'll cover how much the costs are later on in the video. Once more information comes out on the MAO, I will let you all know. But if you are in an LTR, make sure you have registered that on JPA, otherwise it might cause you issues if and when the policy changes. Speak to your HR on how to do that, but you will need some evidence that you and your partner have been together for more than a year. Okay, so you meet the eligibility criteria, but when can you actually apply for SFA? Well, the 2 most common times are upon getting married or entering a civil partnership, and upon receiving an assignment order. But also a change in circumstance, whether that be because of an increase in family size or by virtue of appointment, and if you are granted early mover status if your parent unit is relocating, are also times when you can apply for SFA. So you have just got married or you have an assignment order. How do you go about applying for service families accommodation? You do so by completing the E1132 form, which can be done online. However, this can only be accessed on the Defence intranet, which is why I can't show you how to complete the form. Here is a link from the JSP, just type that into your web browser on a Modnet laptop or terminal and you should be good to go. Make sure to save it to your bookmarks and don't forget your login details as you will need this account for future applications. There is a paper version should access to the intranet be unavailable. You can find this in JSP 464 Volume 1 Part 2 Chapter 4 Annex A. The E1132 form is fairly self-explanatory, but it's pretty clunky and in need of updating. You will require details such as your assignment order number, P-stat category, dates of enlistment and discharge, address of your new and old unit, report for duty date, details of a responsible officer, details of your immediate family, and any pets, amongst some other things. Make sure the details you submit match those on JPA, otherwise it will delay the whole process. If you have any additional needs or disability requirements, you should make that known on this form. That's also true if you wish to live above or below entitlement. Sometimes it's best to give them a call just to make sure they get the message. You would also tick the boxes should you require any furniture or a garage, both of which come at an extra cost. Despite you requesting a garage, it can't always be guaranteed and you could be put on a waiting list. Cookers, curtains and carpets are also provided, but everything else is not unless you opt for a fully furnished option. On the form, you will need to choose a date that you require the property. This can be 4 weeks before or after your date of assignment. For reference, I moved in on the Tuesday before I started at my new post during my relocation leave. In an ideal world, you need to submit the E1132 form a minimum of 2 months before you require the accommodation. If it's submitted with less than 2 months, then Pinnacle, the organisation that deals with all of this, will do all that they can to get you a house for your desired date. Once you submit the form, Pinnacle then have 15 working days to respond and provide you with an offer. If some errors are found in your application, they may take over a week or so to inform you, in which case you then need to fix the mistake and resubmit, thus waiting potentially another 15 days. This is why it's important to input the correct details. Pinnacle will aim to offer you properties within 10 miles of your duty station and within entitlement. You will be presented with at least one house, but it can be more, and you are then to rate them based on your preference. You will have 14 days to accept or refuse the offer. Hopefully, you will then be allocated your top choice. However, the E1132 system is live. This means that houses are added and removed at any point. You will not be the only one looking at or offered that house, so don't wait too long to make your decision, as someone else could accept it before you do, meaning you get your second preference. Now, information on these properties can be scarce. From my experience, it's a photo of the front of the house and maybe a floor plan if you're lucky. So it can be hard to gauge the state, size and standard of the property from the E1132 form. What we have done is, once I know where I'm being posted to, we join the local patch and welfare group on Facebook. And by we, I mean my wife. She then inquires to get people's thoughts and opinions on the houses who live in the area. Some have even shared videos of their own to give us an idea. If possible, we will look at Street View on Google Maps, and I've also been fortunate enough in that the houses I have lived in have all been within about 40 minutes of each other. So popping up on a weekend for a peek through the windows and a test of the doors is always an option for those not moving too far away, or perhaps if you know someone at your new posting, they would be willing to have a look for you. Doing a recce paid off for us in my previous house. We took a trip up to have a look around one afternoon during the week, and the houses around the back of the patch were really nice. There happened to be someone in the process of moving out. He led us into the empty house to have a look around and we were pretty impressed. My E1132 form was already submitted and I was awaiting an offer. That day I phoned up, gave them the address of the house we looked at, told them that I knew the march out date of the family and that we would like that one. Because the family had not yet marched out, it was not yet on the system, but because I got lucky and asked Pinnacle, they set it aside for me, and once it became available on their system, I was offered it. Funnily enough, we were there only a year before we moved again, and the family now in it did the same thing. They lived further away but asked on the Facebook patch group what houses were empty. My wife messaged her saying ours would be soon. Then they phoned up quoting our march out date and when they wanted to march in, and now they live there. Also, once you log into the E1132 form, at the top of the page there is an option for query a property. If you click that and type in the postcode of the patch or streets that you know have military housing on, it will show you around 20 different properties and whether or not they are occupied, under works or available. And it will also show you the type so you know whether or not you would even be offered it. Using all of these different tools and methods will give you the best chance of getting one of the better SFA, but it will also help you make the most informed decision. But what if you have been offered a house that you're not keen on? Well, within the UK you are able to refuse your first offer for 2 reasons. It does not meet your entitlement or for personal reasons. Pinnacle will try to make an alternative offer, but where supply is limited you could be offered the same property again. If your required date is flexible, then you could opt to wait a bit longer to see what other houses become available. If you think you have grounds to refuse your second offer, then you need to complete and submit a second offer review form. This must be submitted, reviewed and concluded within 14 days with all the supporting documents to back up your claim. It will go to the initial reviewing officer, who is usually your CO. If even after this you still decide to refuse the second officer, then you are turning down your entitlement to SFA, which will lead you to having to make your own private accommodation arrangements. So just be mindful of the implications when refusing a house. I will cover non-availability and retaining SFA towards the end of this video. Check the timecodes in the description to navigate to those points. Anyway, once you finally accept that offer, you will be sent a confirmation in the form of the license to occupy, which you must sign. This will have your name and new address on, as well as a bunch of other bits of information that you agreed to while living in the property. It's basically your contract. Make sure to save this document for your records. A blank one can be found in GSP 464 Volume 1 Part 2 Chapter 2 Annex A. Once you have done this, you will then be able to book your pre-march out date, your move-in date, your move-out date, and your 14-day observation date. Some of these will not apply to you if you are moving into SFA from the block or your own private arrangements. If you do not pick them, then after a while the system will. This is all still done on the E1132 form. The pre-march out appointment is mandatory and only applicable to those moving out of SFA. It should happen around a month or so before you leave. It is during this appointment where the housing officer comes out and lets you know what needs doing to hand the property back at the desired standard. They will make you aware of things you may get charged for should you not rectify them. They will take note of any major works that might need doing before the next family move in, and they are there to answer any questions you might have. You'll then book your march in date. This will be the day you officially take over the keys of the new property. If it is too far to travel, you can get someone else to do it for you, known as a proxy. Your spouse or civil partner can also be the one to sign for the keys as well. I will cover what to do on march in later on. If applicable, when it comes to booking your march out date for your previous SFA, there is a 14-day grace period where you can occupy 2 properties. This gives you some time to get all of your stuff into the new house while then having the opportunity to clean the empty one. Just like the march in, you can also have a proxy to do your march out. You can then also book your 14-day observation visit. This is an appointment for 2 weeks after you move into your SFA. The housing officer will come by to see if you've settled in and if there are any issues you have picked up on in that time. I will cover more about the 14-day observation form you need to complete during the move-in portion of this video. Keep in mind, you do not need to pick a date for each of these 4 appointments as soon as the options become available. You can come back and choose a date as and when you get other things in motion. You will receive reminders, however, if you wait too long, then a date will be chosen for you. And that's it really for the E1132 form. The system is certainly not perfect and people do encounter issues. This video is about the process when it works, not when it doesn't. If you are having issues, then give Pinnacle a call. Now, let's talk about removals. You need to get all that furniture to your new house somehow. One way is by using UK Pash, but I will cover that in a future video. In short, this will give you a maximum of £291.24 towards hiring a commercial carrier or self-drive vehicle and trailer to help you move your personal effects. Speak to your HR if you want to go down this route. However, there is another type of removal service, one that if you want will come and pack up your whole house and move it to your next one. You will have to dismantle your beds, any big wardrobes, and disconnect your white goods yourself, but they'll move it all for you. So you will be able to receive publicly funded removals when you are permanently assigned to a new duty station or during an authorised mid-assignment move. This would be due to an increase in entitlement due to a promotion or increasing the size of your family. To apply for the removal service, you need to use the Agility Logistics GRMS site, link below. Register an account and follow the application process. It's fairly simple. You will need your assignment order number and a digital signature from an officer. Click the Help button at the top of the login page for any extra guidance. My advice here is to apply for removals as soon as you receive an assignment order. Do not leave it too late. You do not need your new address when initially applying. You can provide that once you know it at a later date. Especially if you are moving on promotion, you have to remember that many other people have also promoted, and so getting your application in early will give you a better chance of securing the dates you require. If you leave it too late, there may not be any available contractors for the date you wish. It's also advisable to book the removals for the date after you get the keys. This allows some time in case of any issues with the property, but also allows you to go around the house and film and photograph every bit of damage, paint chip, dent, scratch, stain, paint patch, etc. without the hassle of all the boxes being in the way. You should be able to change both the move-in date or the removals date providing there is a vacancy, should the dates initially not work for you. Once you submit the application, you will be allocated a removals company. They will organise a recce with you. This may be done in person or over Zoom. They will have a look around your house and see what needs to be moving and make a list. This is so they know what size vehicle they will need to bring, how many boxes, etc. Currently there is a maximum combined volume of 67.92 cubic meters for moving and or storing of personal effects. This does not change with rank. If you go over this, the removal company can refuse to take anything extra and you will have to pay out of your own pocket to move the rest. You can't use both the MOD removal contractors and UK Pash. There is an option to self-pack and they will just do the moving for you. I know some people prefer to do it this way, but personally, for as long as I'm eligible, I will pick the option for them to pack my house. Depending on the amount of stuff you have and the distance between properties, It can take anywhere between 1 to 3 days within the UK. My last move took them 3 days. 1 day of packing the house, 2nd day to pack the lorry, and the 3rd day was unpacking at the new place. We only moved 40 minutes away. It definitely could have been done in 2 days. Now, you might be thinking, what do you do in that time in relation to food and accommodation when all of your stuff is packed? Well, I will cover that in a bit, but first I want to talk about insurance. There are 3 types you are advised on getting. None of them are mandatory, but naturally you'll suffer the financial brunt should there ever be a situation where it would have been applicable. Firstly, liability insurance. As per JSP 464 under the license to occupy that we must sign, we are not classed as tenants, and therefore standard home insurance policies do not cover potential liabilities. Our potential liability to DIO accommodation is up to £20,000. This will only occur if something happens to the property like flooding or fire due to your negligence. So having liability insurance to cover £20,000 is advisable. Both in the JSP and on the Pinnacle website, there is a link to the SIAP website. Here you can find the details of a number of insurance providers who can organise policies that have been designed specifically for SFA occupants. The website looks like Johnny Age 5 made it, but it's functional. Secondly is contents insurance. This is no different to what you might have in your privately rented or owned home. You can shop anywhere for that. And finally is transit insurance for the removals. Due to the contract in place, because they are not allowed to include insurance in the cost, it means that they can't be held liable for anything that might break during the moving process. So it falls upon the service person to make sure their stuff is insured during the move. If you already have insurance, phone them up to see if your contents are covered while in transit. Not all providers do this, so make sure you find out before going with a bespoke insurer. Personally, our last couple of moves, we've risked it for a biscuit and not taken any insurance out. Normally when I go to marching, I drive down with a carload of valuable stuff anyway, which we would prefer to move ourselves. Obviously, insurance can be useful in case the lorry caught fire or was stolen, etc. As I said, all of these are optional, but not taking them out, you do so at your own risk. Right, back to your accommodation and food entitlement during the period where all of your stuff is in a lorry. On screen now is the relevant paragraph from JSP 752. In simple terms, you are entitled to claim subsistence for up to 3 nights for yourself and your immediate family. For example, my most recent move saw myself and my family in a hotel for 3 nights with breakfast included and all paid for. Also, I was able to claim back for lunch and dinner too for the 4 of us. Daily subsistence is £30 and that is for each person. This was all booked through my HR at my losing unit. Speak to them to get it sorted. It's up to you whether you want the hotel at your new or losing unit. We had a hotel at my losing unit because my son was still in nursery there, and it also kept us closer to the house to get on with the cleaning, etc. Now, if your move is taking a day, then don't expect to get 3 nights. I had to write justification as to why I wanted a 3rd night, because technically my stuff had been moved in after the 2nd night. My son's final day in nursery and being close to the house to get it to march out standard was enough for it to be approved. What about when it comes to relocation leave and disturbance expense? Well, I have done videos on both of those which I will link below, but in short, relocation leave is a week and should be taken from your losing unit. Your HR will add it to the system once they get wind of you being assigned. When it comes to disturbance expense, you can get just over £1,000 to help with the move. Extra is added on for your children at school to compensate for uniforms, etc. You can claim this yourself via JPA a few weeks before you are assigned, and you will see that in your next payslip. Disturbance expenses is there to help towards costs like redirecting mail, cancellation of internet contracts early, food waste due to the move, hiring cleaners, painters, the insurance I mentioned, etc. It's unreceipted. This means if you want to do the cleaning and painting yourself, then you can pocket the rest of it. That's what we did this time round, and instead use that money to buy a tumble dryer, and it will also go towards getting an EV charger installed onto the house. Right, so you're eligible for SFA. You've used the E1132 form to apply. You've been offered a house, you've accepted and signed the license to occupy. You've booked removals, sorted the relevant dates, HR have squared your hotel for you and your family, you've put in for your disturbance expense, booked your relocation leave, and you've maybe taken out some insurance. Now it's finally time to move in. So on the date and time you booked, you will meet the housing officer at your new SFA. They will give you a tour of the house, talk you through anything you are unsure of, and give you the keys. They will also take meter readings to add onto the move-in document that you will sign and that you will give to your chosen energy provider. One thing you may experience are debt collection letters coming through the post chasing energy bills for the property whilst it's been dormant. If you get one of these, don't worry, take a photo and send it to utilities@vivodefense.com. I've had these in 2 out of the 3 SFA I have been in. When going around the house, test the lights, taps, shower, hot and cold water, flush the toilets, look for stains on the carpet, damage to walls, doors, etc. If you can highlight these things while the housing officer is there, then they will take note of it on the move-in form. There are usually engineers at the property too ready to fix any issues that crop up. Once you're happy and you sign, they will leave you to it. You will then get all the relevant documents and safety certificates sent to you in an email. Make sure you keep this. Also, as part of this email will be your 14-day report to complete. Make sure you keep this too. You will want this to hand when you give the house back. Naturally, you will not notice every issue in the short period the housing officer shows you around. This 14-day report form is an opportunity for you to put down everything you spot. And be rigid. The house I am currently in has over 140 minor faults. These are faults that don't necessarily need fixing, but are things I do not want to be billed for when I leave. Stains, dents, scratches, patch painting, poorly painted areas, paint peeling off in places, poorly filled holes in walls, holes in windows where people have hung up net curtains, etc. You'll also book a 14-day visit via the E1132 form. This is where the housing officer will pop by to see how things are going and if there are any further issues. Also take the time while the house is empty to go around and film and photograph every nook and cranny in all the rooms. Have a visual record showing the standard of the house when you moved in. But at what point can you consider it a failed march-in? So you can refuse to sign for the SFA if you believe the property does not meet the contracted move-in standards and is uninhabitable. You can see on screen now what is considered as uninhabitable. This can be found on the Pinnacle website. Things such as collapsed ceiling, presence of asbestos, no means to heat water, no means to secure the property, orders of approved furniture not being in the property, and so on. Keep in mind, if you refuse to sign for the keys, you will need to provide evidence. If your claim is valid, then Pinnacle will sort out temporary accommodation for you and your family while things get sorted out. So, you have the keys, removals have come and gone, but before you can really get started on sorting this new house out, you need to square away the old one. That is, of course, if you have moved from SFA to SFA. Let's talk about what happens at March Out. At the time and date you booked on the E1132 form, either you or your proxy will meet with the housing officer at your old SFA. They will check through everything as they will now take responsibility of the property. To avoid being billed, you need to get the property to March Out standard. The housing officer will be checking the condition of everything and comparing it with your 14-day observation form you completed on move-in. Normal wear and tear is fine, but you will be charged for any negligence or damage. If something was highlighted by your housing officer on the pre-March Out and you haven't fixed it in time for the March Out, then you could be billed for this too. But what does a March Out standard even entail? Well, I will link below a 15-page guide from Pinnacle telling you exactly what you need to do. Some of the big things are clean floors and carpets, clean inside the windows, clean the bins. If you have any pets, make sure you do some flea spray. Lay grass seed on bare patches in the garden. All lights are to have working bulbs in them. Curtains are to be clean and crease free. Holes in the walls are to be filled, sanded and painted. Oven is to be like new, etc. If you follow the guide, you can't go wrong. Personally, with each move, we have hired a professional oven cleaner. We also hired a professional cleaner for our first move. The second move we did ourselves due to no one being available. But if we could have outsourced it, we would have. Thankfully, we have not yet been billed on any of our March Outs. Ask around your local patch or community to see if anyone recommends a cleaner. They cost a few hundred, but could save you hours. Also, the walkaway scheme is no longer a thing, so don't get caught out with that one. But what happens if you're billed? Well, firstly, if you are in the UK, the charges will be recovered from your pay. During the move out, you will be made aware of these charges, and you will have to sign to say that you agree. You can refuse and dispute the claim if you so choose. Depending on the size of the bill and how much you are paid, it could be taken as a one-er or in a number of installments. You should be notified as to what is happening and when, but if you are unsure, speak to your HR. Thanks to a Freedom of Information request by Miss Farmer, JSP 754 is available, just not on the Gov website. It states that the minimum drawing rate is 50% of net pay. Now, supposedly, the money taken is meant to go to rectify the issue you have been billed for. However, I'm skeptical of this. It might happen in some instances, but I've also heard stories of people being billed and a new family moving into the SFA with the issue not being rectified. A dit that was spun to me, I'm not sure how true it is though, about someone managing to dodge being charged was because they were going to cut a square patch out of the carpet where a stain was and frame it on their wall as the most expensive stain. Apparently, the threat of that action alone stopped the housing officer from raising the charge because they would then actually have to replace the carpet. But what are some things you shouldn't be charged for? So if the property hasn't been decorated in the past 4 years, however, you can still be charged for damage, no charges for carpets over 10 years old, no charges for curtains over 8 years old. But the main thing to avoid charges, be rigid on march in and with your 14-day observation form. Take photos and videos and keep them in a folder on your laptop and attach them with the form when you email it off. But also, just take care of the property, clean the stains when they happen, fix the dent in the wall your kid makes because they decided to throw their wooden car against it, and so on. And when something breaks that isn't your fault, report it so it can be fixed. So, how do you go about reporting a fault while you're living there? The process is pretty simple, the execution of it can be frustrating. Over on the Pinnacle website there is an online form you complete with your details, the repair details, and your preferred days and time you would like someone to come out and fix it. The more detailed you are with what is wrong, the easier it is for the right person to be sent out with the right bits. Jobs are given a priority and it can take a few days and in some cases weeks to get things repaired. You'll be notified when an appointment has been made, keep this for your records. An engineer will come out on the day and try and fix the issue. My experience thus far of reporting faults and getting them fixed has been 50-50. Some engineers are great, but others just do the bare minimum. The system is flawed and it seems like the incentives are all wrong. Especially in the early days of the new contract, the service was absolutely shocking. It has improved since, but is still far from where it needs to be. Pinnacle do offer compensation for when certain things go wrong. On screen now you can see when you will receive compensation and how much. In our first SFA we ended up getting quite a bit of comp, a number of missed appointments, and when the old boiler piled in, we were without heating for a few days. By far, our first SFA had the most problems. Now perhaps you will be in that SFA for a number of years and you want to do some decoration to make it more homely. The magnolia walls don't really cut it, although they are beginning to change that to white. Well, you can paint the walls, put up wallpaper or vinyl floor, etc. However, you are still to put it back the way you were given it when you come to leave, otherwise you will be billed. Personally, we just put up a bunch of crap. Curtains, rugs, arts and plants. It does the trick and doesn't cost all that much at all. We use command strips to keep the walls and paint intact. Minimal work and cost when we move out. If you would like to do a more permanent fixture to the property, then you need to complete an encroachment form, which can be found on the Pinnacle site. I've done this to ask if I can install an EV charger, but it could also be to lay a small patio in the back garden, or to build an actual proper fence as opposed to the crappy wire fences that come in many SFA, or it could be to install another set of plug sockets in your bedroom. Whatever the reason, it comes out of your pocket, and even though it's been approved and has probably improved the property, they could still ask you to put it back the way you were given it. Let's move on to bills and how much you will be expected to pay for service families accommodation. When you live in SLA, you don't need to worry about any utility bills, but moving into SFA is another step in the journey of adulting, and you have to pay utility bills. For most, this will be at the normal market rate everyone pays, and you can pick and choose your provider. Don't make the mistake we first made when we moved into SFA and pay a water bill. We paid for a full year upfront. It wasn't until a few months later we learned that you do not pay for water in SFA. Thankfully, we provided the evidence to the water company and they refunded us. However, you are responsible for electricity and gas. You can stick with the provider already in place at the property, or you can switch. You are responsible for giving them your move-in and move-out meter readings and telling them that you are moving. I am personally with Octopus Energy. They are great and I haven't had any issues. A big reason for me being with them is that they offer very cheap rates when it comes to charging my EV. If you're looking to switch, you can use my sign-up link in the description below, and then we both get £50 credited to our accounts. Even though you are supposed to pay a TV license in SLA, most don't. However, being in SFA, it will be easier for the licensing agency to pin you down for not paying it. You legally do not have to pay it providing you meet the criteria. I have made a whole video on that which I will link below. Many councils require a garden waste subscription too, should you wish to have one of those bins alongside your general waste bin. Speaking of councils, what about council tax? We do pay this, but it goes to the MOD and not straight to the council. The MOD then pay the council the tax bill. You will see it on your payslip as SILOT, or contribution in lieu of council tax. You pay this if you're in SLA or SFA. The rates of course are much cheaper if you live in the block. From April 2024, the daily rate of SILOT for SFA is now on screen. You can see that it varies depending on your SFA type. I'm currently in type C, meaning my daily rate is £5.19p, which is about £160 per month. If you are on an eligible operational tour, then you will be entitled to council tax relief at the end of it. If you live in SFA, your HR will process the refund automatically and it will come to you as a lump sum at the end of the deployment. If you have a garage, then here are the daily charges associated with the standard of garage you have. You'll be looking at around £34 per month for the top tier garage. And here are the daily charges depending on the accommodation type for a partially or fully furnished SFA. I've personally never used this. However, if you have a baby, you can request stairgates, a cot, a high chair, and even a playpen free of charge. Do that via the Pinnacle website. Now, let's have a look at how much the actual rent of a house is. The subsidy rate for SFA sits anywhere between 59 to 71% of the market rate, so it's quite substantial. On screen now are the daily rates depending on the type. Remember that types B to D are currently for other ranks, types 1 to 5 are currently for officers. There is of course some cross-pollination, but it's not yet the norm. You will pay the rate of the house you occupy and not your entitlement, except in situations where you are moved above entitlement due to a lack of availability of your own. Not only are these rates separated by type, but they are also separated by CAS band. I am not going into what this means or entails in this video. You will be told the type and band when you agree to the house, and it's also on your payslips should you be unsure. These CAS bands are reviewed as well, so it could change whilst you are occupying the property. You will be informed if this happens. You can see that mine is a Type C CAS band C, so I pay £8.88p per day for a 3-bedroom terraced house in one of the most expensive cities in the UK. That's around £275 per month. When I add up the SFA rent, the garage and the silot, my total accommodation charge per month is around £470. That's pretty insane. Now, the Armed Forces Pay Review Body do recommend the amount accommodation should increase each year. This should not come as a surprise to people. We may benefit from subsidised accommodation, but that doesn't mean we are shielded from the increases in the rental market. So, what happens if you applied for SFA, but there is none? If upon completing the E1132 form you are informed there are no available properties at your duty station, then you should be given the option for a non-availability certificate or NAC. This would then mean that Substitute Service Family Accommodation or SSFA will be sourced. Receiving a NAC will then allow MERS, the MOD contractor, to start looking for a suitable property on the private rental market. You can't look for one yourself. You should be given 2 properties to view and you must pick one. Within the UK, you can only move in 2 days before the assignment date with SSFA. Be aware that if a suitable SFA becomes available before you move in, your NAC can be revoked and you'll be given the newly freed up house. What about retaining the current SFA that you already occupy? There are situations where you can stay in the SFA you are living in. Perhaps you need to wait a bit longer until SFA is available at your new duty station, or there are welfare or medical reasons. Maybe you have children at critical stages in education like GCSEs or A-levels. Perhaps your spouse is undertaking educational courses, or maybe they need to give a certain notice period to their employer. Whatever the reason, you need to apply to retain and provide evidence to back up your case. A list of reasons can be found on JSP 464. When filling out the E1132 form, there is an option you can check to retain, but you will also need to complete a retention form. Annex A to Chapter 7 in JSP 464, Volume 1, Part 1. Fill this out, gather as much evidence as you can, and send it off to retentions@pinnacleservicefamilies.co.uk. They will then make the decision and let you know the outcome. Now onto a more morbid topic, but certainly relevant. What happens to the serving person's family if they happen to die? Well, thankfully the family is not evicted upon receiving the news. Annex B to Chapter 3 in JSP 464 Volume 1 Part 1 contains the details, but in a nutshell, following the news, the bereaved partner will be given the option to remain in the SFA for up to 2 years. They will continue to pay the rate applicable to the type and grade of the property. Silots can also be reduced by 25% due to single occupancy. If the bereaved partner wishes to move closer to their immediate family, then they can do so and will be provided with removals at public expense as well as disturbance allowance. They must choose to do so within 12 months of the death. SFA will be sourced within 50 miles of the desired location. And the final thing I quickly want to cover is just a list of things you need to change when you move house, applicable to life in general. So when you move, don't forget to redirect your mail, sort out Wi-Fi, update your address with your bank, investment brokers, car finance, credit card, car insurance, life insurance, pet insurance, contents insurance, home insurance, driver's license, on JPA, store loyalty cards, Amazon, TV licensing, tell your family, HMRC if you do self-assessments, enter the electoral roll for that location, and I'm sure I have missed plenty off of there too. And that's it. That is a walkthrough on how to apply, move in and move out of service families accommodation within the UK. Hopefully I've managed to squeeze in enough information to answer your questions. If I haven't, please leave a comment below and I will try and get back to you with an answer. If you have any tips or tricks, please let us know in the comments too. It would be good to hear and learn from other people's experience. Personally, I think SFA is a great benefit to us, and I will be continuing to milk it for a while and using that time to save and invest the money that I would have paid in privately sourced accommodation. For more information, check out JSP 464 and the Pinnacle website. Do you live in SFA? What has been your experience so far? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you all for watching. If you liked what you just saw, please hit the subscribe button up there, and if you want to see some more videos, click over there. See you soon.